Constituted. Quorum is present, and the first order of business is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion? Thanks, and a second. Discussion. Peter, you look very much like you have something you want to say.
There's an on-table with respect to the close proximity bridge inspections, which we put out to RFP, and which we just got back proposals on.
Yep.
So we're suggesting that be 8A5.
8A5, and let's call it bridge inspection proposal. Okay.
My change is 8C, to strike both. They're covered later on.
8C. Okay,
Yep.
just strike them from here.
Yep.
Fine. Okay, anybody else? Okay, all in favor as amended and opposed? That carries. And next is approval of, oh sorry, no, I keep getting this wrong. Public participation. Anybody? Louis, you're next.
So I'm a delegation.
Yeah, you're a delegation. No? Okay, so we'll move on to delegation. Louis Peterson, welcome.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. I first of all have to apologize. I just got back from Bowen Island, so my presentation will likely be a lot shorter than usual. I apologize for that.
What does Bowen Island have to do?
It's a long commute.
Or helping a friend. Anyway, I made some quick notes. The Resources Director is meant to be a servant for the community. And what I have presented, what I've given you earlier in printed material, is something of telling you what the flavour of the project is. I mentioned that there was the catalyst, which was the fortuitous $400 grant from Vancouver Foundation, which was to do a brochure of sorts, bigger because it became necessary, or our thinking was that we should try to be inclusive, and so it became a project for the whole village. I think that it's about community engagement gives you some idea as to the assistance that has come forward and the favourable impressions that people have about the need for those direct. So you can have a look at that. It's on an acknowledgement page, a list of people helping. And then what's being done is that there are 5 items that I will just quickly mention. First of all, an update to out-of-date 2011 directory. That's pretty well in hand, but it's not as good as it might have been. Something like over 300 names in the directory, and it should really be much bigger than that. But that's what we have to work with. We've secured advertisements from commercial people and from not-for-profit organizations in the village, and some outside the village. They are the providers of services to the community. We established a free structure after looking at small communities like Quadra, Cortez, Bowen Island, and I think there was another one. I can't remember. It was one of the other islands. They're all much bigger than we are.
Texada.
Texada, we looked at that, I think. But anyway, they're much bigger than we are, and they have much more in the way of commercial resources to tap into, because we don't have much of that at all. We investigated the pros and cons of having a website. Now, we cannot put the actual telephone directory. We do not wish to put the telephone directory on a website. Although Texada, I guess, or maybe it's Quadra and Cortez, that do have their directories on the website. The pros and cons, well, one of the pros is that it gives a much bigger reach to the people who advertise. Our catchment is very small with only 540 residences. So this should appeal to the advertisers. And then we have prepared a pre-publication draft, which I have here, which I will update and maybe leave in the office so that people can look at it at their leisure. And this is the front page that we have at the moment, but that will get changed. It's a draft. It was very successful on Fireman's Day because what happened was people saw the pre-publication draft, and we got at least another 19 names for the directory, and 3 new potential advertisers. And then what we have got in terms of cash is that we have, let me find just so I can be reasonably accurate. We have something like over $2,500 in payments already in our bank account. We have 6,500, about 6,500, shall we say, in terms of outstanding invoices that have yet to come in. And then, of course, we do have a $2,500 repayable grant from council.
Just say those numbers again, please, Louis.
Well, if you,
2,500 in the bank.
well, more,
6,500
Yes.
asks out.
there's 6,500 or more invoices that haven't yet been paid.
Invoices from whom to whom?
Well, from us to the advertisers.
Okay, got it.
Yes. 2,500, more than that, somewhat greater than 2,500, have already been paid by advertisers. And then we have the $2,500 from council. So we have something like $8,600 or so in the account. And I was beginning to get a bit concerned that we might not be able to repay the loan. That's why I'm here tonight. So that is pretty much all that I had a chance to think about saying. I can answer questions that you may have.
Thanks, Council.
I would discourage on a website thing. I think your membership is going to be fatigued at the end of the day, Louis. And if you've got a website, that means you have to maintain it. Unless you call it a dead website, it's just there for reference.
You mean a website that would be for the phone directory?
Yes, specific to
There's a
this.
lot of opposition to that. A great deal of opposition.
And where's your manpower coming from to?
Well, the manpower is more or less shown in what I have listed in the acknowledgement.
Okay.
That's
Well,
manpower, but yes, they're getting tired.
My caution is
We'll have to
be
update.
careful what you chew off.
Too late.
Good attitude. So, Louis, the 300 names, that's 300 individuals, not 300 addresses.
It's 350 or something like that names. And some people have given me more than one name from the same address. No names mentioned.
Yes, well,
So
if you're looking at me, that was 4 from our address.
I was looking at you. There's quite a number of people who have given 2 names from the same address, and sometimes it's different names, sometimes not. But we have, that's why I say it's approximately 350 names. So I haven't really counted how many individual homes that would be.
I guess where I'm going with my question is, do you feel that's sufficient, adequate critical mass to interest people?
Well-
Does it provide sufficient coverage that people are going to look up somebody in the directory?
That is a good question, and that's a bit of a concern, of course. But I think that we've got to hope that in the update, which we could produce next year, people will see what we've done, the wonderful quality of this document, and they'll say, I did intend to opt in, and now I'll do it. So we don't.
I think that's where I would go. That you should certainly be thinking about a next edition. So once people see what
I think
they're missing.
For the phone directory, I think I would agree with that, and that's been my thinking all along, that we would do an update of the phone directory. I think that the resources directory, which is the advertisers and the commercial businesses and realtors and people like that, we may not want to go after them for a subsequent payment, you know.
Well, I mean, I think you've already secured what looks to be $9,000, assuming everybody eventually stumps up their funds.
Yes.
That's
And I
a
think
success.
I think it could be more, because when people do see what we have got to offer, you see, the dilemma is, it's been very nebulous. We said there's going to be a resources directive. Well, what is it? What's it going to look like? Well, now we do have a draft,
Yeah.
and that would be quite a benefit, a bonus, really.
Okay, well, I'm sure I speak for everybody. Well done.
Yeah,
Well,
by
thank you.
comparison, Peter, how many are on the alert? How many names do we have there?
I don't know, do we know what the latest
More or less.
number is?
I don't know.
Well, guess.
250?
Somewhere around there.
350?
Yeah.
300?
Yeah, that's not enough. Well, I mean, so
Well,
that,
there's your comparative, where people think it.
yeah, if there's a forest fire, the people who put the names down are going to get a list, going to get a thing.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay,
Thank you, Louis.
I'll go home and have some food.
Okay. Owen's quite a trek. Okay, we'll now move on to
Louis?
item 5.
Sorry, what's that?
Sure.
Louis?
Louis, yes.
Were you gonna leave a copy of that
I will.
desk, or did you wanna do that tomorrow or
I'll
today?
do that
now,
in
or-
a day or two.
Okay,
It's-
all right.
Because it needs to be updated
Okay,
and used.
fine. Okay, thanks.
We'll get them, Peter. And Peter, if you could write a couple of pages and pay us $1,000, that would be appreciated.
What can you say?
Okay, fantastic. Approval of the prior minutes. This was the meeting that I was not at, so I will...
You chaired that meeting
You did.
for the first 6 minutes.
Oh, that was that minute. That was that one. Special meeting. You're right. So, it was supposed to be a very quick meeting, but actually turned into a fairly meeting. So, I didn't have anything.
Nothing from you.
Okay. Motion to approve, second. Thanks. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. And business arising. There's none. We'll move to unfinished business. First one is parking plan initiatives. Peter, do you want to give us a quick...
So the quick lowdown is we're working on a spreadsheet that will itemize all the signage that we're recommending be purchased, and hope to have that for October 3rd.
Do you have any sense, even rough, how far into the $25,000 budget we are?
I don't know yet.
Right now, we haven't spent anything.
Well, there's quite a few new signs already.
Those would be out of the operating budget. They wouldn't have been part of that 25 ask.
Okay. Okay. Anecdotally, I certainly hear from residents that I think they overall are quite pleased, both from the sense of the GE experiment, which as you remember is where they changed the lighting level in the factory, just shows that somebody's paying attention. But it also seems to be successful. For example, I spoke to a resident whose house looks down on the Lions Bay beach parking lot, and she says it's quieter. She hasn't heard anybody quibbling about the money. They just line up at the meter and buy their tickets. She did question that people were parking there with trailers, but it seemed to her that there was more room for everybody. I have also heard from people who go to the beach a lot and have some sort of qualitative sense, I suppose, that about 7/8 of the people at the beach are not Lions Bears, at least on the weekend. When I go down there in the week, I'd say it's 90% Lions Bears, and the parking lot's empty. One final thing, the parking lot sometimes seems to be full and nobody at the beach, and I can only assume those people are marina users. Because where else are they? But that was more in the early part of the summer. So I would say that ad hoc as it was, it seems to be having an effect.
Jesus.
What are you doing?
Trying to be calm.
Councillor McLaughlin came across.
You might want to switch chairs. Is that the bad
no,
chair?
it's okay.
Yeah, I think he was playing with it.
Prop yourself up against the
Yeah.
wall.
No, there's a
They
chair
changed the
that's...
chairs, yeah.
Just let that go.
Yeah, take that one out and put it out of our misery. That drove quite right out of my head.
Sorry.
That worked.
Parking Non-residents on the beach.
Anecdotally, things seem to be
Let me carry on while you mull.
Mhm.
Same experience with me that the residents that basically will never go to KG Beach during the weekend. I have witnessed a travel tour company discouraging 10 to 15 foreign visitors with floaties to go into the water. So I think it's fair to say Lions Bay has been discovered.
Well, people insist on putting it on Facebook every time they turn around. So yeah, that's to be expected. So now that's something we want to be aware of. Amenities fee or something. You don't get to use your commercial tour company come and dump your customers. It is public beach. Okay, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is fair to say that Lions Bay Beach has been discovered. It's actually a very nice
And
beach.
I think the lack of any correspondence on this other than Doug's from July the first week, absolutely nothing.
Which was more suggestions than objection.
Well, there's been the odd letter here and there. Or
Have you?
Email. Well, you've had a couple of things that you've passed on to me, and
Yeah, I wouldn't call them negative in any way. They sort of, if anything, I suppose they're sort of resigned and understanding the necessity. Oh, it was enforcement. Our enforcement has been spotty. For example, Peter knows this example all too well. I counted 29 cars parked down Lions Bay Avenue, 6 of which had decals, and none of which had parking tickets. And certainly 23 of them should have had a parking ticket. They were non-resident parked in a resident only. I can see the point that they may make the case that they didn't know that was the non-resident, the resident only permit space, because there's no signage, or there's about 4 signs. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the signage recommendation are a little bit after the fact, but that's possibly good because it gives us a chance to tweak things in the off season and really have something fairly well tuned for next season. I think it's working. It's having the effect of providing for residents, accommodating visitors. There's far less argy-bargy, except when people are not. There's a lot of people chancing down because they know they're very unlikely, especially during the week when it's very much the case that they're not going to get enforced. But even on the weekend, I see people pretty much parking wherever they can. I also see the park and ride lot full because people are too cheap to pay the fee. And I also see 4 cars or 5 sometimes now parked up Southview, which is not a resident-only street. That needs to change. It's amazing the price sensitivity of some people.
It's the same thing in Horseshoe Bay where people are up on the old highway and parking up there so they can hump their 70 pounds worth of gear to go
Down to the
camping
ferry.
overnight.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay, so I think enough on that. If everybody's satisfied, we'll move on to the Lions Bay Native Plant Garden Association correspondence. I responded to that.
yeah. So this is pretty old because this would be back from early July. Or
Yeah.
so.
Latest July 4th.
Yeah.
So
Did I copy you on the correspondence to come into the
I
thing?
don't remember actually.
Okay, leave it on there just in case I forgot to. I remember writing the letter, but that's all I remember. Okay, the bait car program, Peter?
Yeah. No, I didn't. I didn't.
I'd propose we just remove
speak
this.
with them.
We don't,
Yeah,
we don't want
yeah,
bait cars.
It's done.
It's done. Fine. Take 21 out, Shauna. 22, BC Hydro invitation to BC convention in progress. Discuss it next meeting.
So that was contact was made, and we're on their list, but we haven't got a meeting date or time yet.
I'll just remind us all that UBCM's in 2 weeks' time. I haven't got any meetings fleshed out yet. I've been corresponding
No,
somewhat
we're-
plaintively.
Waiting.
John Horgan's personally invited you.
Well, and the ex-minister of transport, Todd Stone, he also wants me to come to a breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning downtown. It's a hot breakfast, though, according to their invitation. Yeah, so the BC Hydro one is to inquire if they had any plans or what might be involved with re-landscaping substations and power lines, so that we can speak when we're starting to talk about the marketing of the public works yard, what might be available for a developer, how easy, how amenable is BC Hydro. We just want to let them know what we're up to.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so I think you can take that one off as well, Shauna, because it's been done and it's under work. Peter, 23.
Yeah, I followed up with Doug, and so that one can be put to bed.
Right. 23 can count, and that's it. So we'll now move on to staff reports. Peter, we've all read the report starting on page 13, so give us the cliff notes and then let's move on.
So, from a cliff note perspective, we had 3 good proposals. We'd be fortunate with any one of the 3. Bang for the buck, I think that the proposal from Pierre Freely of Cordilleran. I think we'll get more from this, and Steve Olmsted, the planning consultant, and I did clarify a few things about Pierre's proposal, just to make sure that we were totally understanding of everything, and so we're confident that this is the best proposal, and that we're going to get a good piece of work done by a very qualified, knowledgeable geoscientist who's familiar with our area, and we're going to have a good set of guidelines for a development permit for natural hazard areas.
Okay, now we don't see his proposal, but nor do we need to. It's been evaluated by you and Steve.
Yeah.
Have you seen it now?
No. But Pierre has done a lot of work for Public Works.
Yeah, I
Read his previous reports and they're outstanding, so.
I have too, and I found his reports unnecessarily technical. He doesn't need to baffle me with science.
You want to repeat that?
Yeah.
I think that's Pierre, that's his nature.
Yeah, but it's a little bit, I'm now going to baffle you and just take my word for it. But fair enough. Presumably he'll write this in English.
That was, I think, mandatory requirement of the RFP.
We are talking about a geoscientist here.
Well, you need to tone it down a bit.
Very passionate.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about that.
Oh, a lot of them usually are very
And
passionate.
I wouldn't
about
say he
what they do.
saved our bacon several times, but he certainly put us on the right road. For example, our very onerous and strict backcountry access rules for rain,
Mm-hmm.
which are probably correct. Okay, so any questions on the process? There's a series of motions here that we'll just go through in a minute. But on the actual thing, necessity.
Put forward a motion.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take the motion as read under 8A1, numbers 1, 2, and 3. Can I have a second? Thanks. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And then we'll move on to the financial mid-year review, starting on page 37. Pam? So what I suggest is maybe that I'm sure that some people have flagged some numbers. Maybe we just run through them.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, it was a fairly high-level summary. I gave a little more, less detail, sort of per council's request in terms of the expense. I just did the summary, focused on the capital. And the capital was up to date as of August 31st. It's not truly a mid-year review, but I thought I'd give the most accurate information I could. The review itself was to July 31st. We always have that issue with August. Normally we would do a mid-year review in August with June 30th results.
So this is through 7 months, not
through
6.
7 months, yes.
What's 7 divided by 12 in terms of percentage?
It's about 0.58. So I would
try
do
that.
that analysis. 0.58.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're under in just about every category.
Yeah, that's correct. Or we're concerningly exact, like our administration is 58%. But I suppose you budgeted to the penny. I mean, some of these things, like our taxation,
Yeah, the administration was just a bit fluky. It's just how we're.
it's just how it was.
I mean, it's puts and takes. If you were to see the detail, we're over in some and under in others, but overall.
Well, let's just go through this one by one. So starting on the consolidation page, I'll kick it off. The water fund is well underspent. Is that simply because some stuff is coming, or what?
Yes, it's essentially that there are things coming. So I meant to bring the detail with me. It's.
Go ahead.
Oh, but I said there's 30,000 for rock slope remediation that will be done later in the year.
Oh, that comes out of water. Yeah. Okay.
And,
Well, that's still not going to put us.
No.
So, is a lot to? I mean, the both the infiltration gallery and the new weir profile. That's
They're both.
we haven't
on
seen any
target.
charges from that yet, really, have we?
I don't know if we've had any invoices.
That's in the capital, so.
Oh, that's in the capital. This is
Yeah.
operating.
Yeah.
This is operating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the rock slope scaling that's built into the budget, and I don't remember if the tank cleaning was built into the budget.
Yes, tank
Yeah.
cleaning was in there as well. So we had some things we knew we'd be favorable on if we were successful with the grant. And one of them was the tip of my tongue.
Rock slope in the tanks?
The rock slope, and there was the consultant that we can actually put against the grant.
Yes.
But we were having it done anyway.
Yeah, I have a question
So-
about the consultant in the check section, but so would it be fair to say that, well, obviously I don't like taxing money that we don't spend, but do you see a trend here that our operating costs on water are coming down because things
No, I
stop
don't think
breaking?
So there's you know, we had a lot of snowfall and the water tables have been high. When the water tables drop low, from what I hear from staff, there's more debris in the water, twigs, that sort of stuff, so there's more cleaning of screens, etc. I think this year's an anomalous year. The other thing is that for the duration of the construction, our visits to the intake have been low because we've had people up there working on them. So there's been no need to go up there and investigate the intakes.
But are you reallocating staff time? So you don't charge them to the water budget, you charge them to something else?
We've had several projects that have cropped up this year that have taken up time from staff, so taken them and diverted them away.
So it doesn't
from
count against water?
From operating, that doesn't count against water, correct.
Okay.
Pam, could you break this category down when you do your 9 months and just do that one as a
Yes, well,
separate
that was
sheet,
actually
just so
going
we
to
can
be my
look to this?
question. I mean, this was a new
I
approach
mean,
I
we're throwing
took.
smallish numbers
but-
around, but we're talking 500 grand here, so.
But I'm thinking maybe for the the plan for the third quarter was to show all the detail like I usually do. We don't necessarily have to analyze, go through every page, but then you see the backup. And I apologize, I meant to bring that with me to the meeting. But it is salaries as well. Salaries are tracking year-to-date favorable because time isn't being charged there. But the plan is that will be changing by the end of the year. So the anticipation, the operating costs for water will be on budget at the end of the year. With the exception of being favorable, only about $15,000 with the consultant costs because we had to budget them because we had to do that. But because we were successful with the grant, we can now charge it against the grant and move it into capital.
And speaking about the grant, I see that we've received 748 of the expected amount.
Yes.
That's copacetic, no problems there or anything.
Yeah, they
That was the provincial section.
exactly. They gave
provincial
it
part.
up front, which they didn't do with the Build Canada. So that was quite a. It's got $750,000.
We bought a piece of land with it. It's just cash flow. Okay, so anything else on the first page, page 38? Right.
No, I'm fine, I'm writing notes for the end though.
Okay, thanks. So let's move on to the next page. This is the
revenue.
The revenue.
So the revenue is impacted obviously a lot by timing. We're already at 100% of taxation and utility fees because we billed them. Fees, license, and permits are overall is tracking favorable, mainly because of building permits. We've had several large projects. I anticipated some of them and adjusted the budget accordingly, but we've had some additional larger houses come on board. And then that's had an impact on the connection fees, which is in, we'll get to that with other revenue. The grants, we've got we're pretty much right on budget with the small community grant. It's always a bit of an estimate of what we'll get, but we were almost right on. The new Build Canada grant, again, that's just 2/3 of the costs we've incurred, but we'll be discussing that more in capital. And then as you can see, the $750,000 on the Clean Water Wastewater grant. And the only thing I'll highlight is the CN Railway grant. I've discussed that in the expense side as well. But we had budgeted $84,000 for a grant, which was 80% of the costs, to do some maintenance on the, which one was it?
Safety upgrades.
The safety upgrades, and we did not get that grant. It's a very hard grant to get, and we weren't successful. So we've essentially taxed.
We knew that, I think, right?
Yeah, earlier.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do the project.
No,
No.
we were only going to do it if we got the grant.
Yeah.
But we have taxed for $26,000 of the differential. So my recommendation for that is just to let it flow into a reserve, just put it into operating reserves at the end of the year. If the grant is available in 2018, we will try and apply again, but then we've already taxed for our differential. And if the grant isn't available and we don't tax, we have the money in a reserve for maintenance that we know we'll have to do. So
Yeah.
either way, although we've taxed for it, it's not going to, there's still a purpose for the money, sorry.
Yeah.
Comment. I was down there today at Brunswick Beach, and there was a big CN crew down there changing timbers on the crossing.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
they will bill us for
Oh,
We'll
that.
get a bill for that, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
We don't get a choice on that, right?
No,
no,
And that's not 80% money either.
that's 100% money.
Yeah.
no.
And timbers will eventually rot. So.
Oh, well, we've been through this already. Yeah. I think the last one we got, this was before all of your time, I think it was 80 grand. They sent us a bill. Okay.
So again, the money will not be, although we've taxed for it, it won't go to waste. We'll be using it for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think nobody's going to quibble on that one. We did it provisional on a grant. We didn't get the grant. Okay, well, so we'll keep it keep our powder dry.
And the only other one was under other grants, that included $25,000 for a TransLink grant. We were putting towards the stairs, and we were successful with the grant, but we just got $12,500. It is more, we were a little bit aggressive with that. We were hopeful we would get the full amount, but it's more typical to get 50%. So. we did
Well,
get
when
the
I was
grant.
told the grant was coming, I got the impression it was 100% grant, so I'm going to
Yes.
speak to them about that.
Yeah.
It's going to be the first time we get 150% grant next year. Because
So,
they distinctly said they were going to
okay.
give us 20 grand.
So that was really just, I mean,
Yeah, whatever.
I
yeah,
think
okay.
we did the right thing when we budgeted it, but in case of the CN Rail and the TransLink grant, we are a bit unfavorable on that.
Okay, so I had a few questions
Sure.
here. I'll kick them off. The secondary suite surcharge fee.
Yes.
I only just point this out to council. As you know, I'm questioning the rationale and usefulness of a secondary suite fee. There we see what the number is, 20 grand. So we would have to recoup that money some other way, presumably from all taxpayers, if we were to rescind the secondary suite fee. So I'll just bear that in mind for my proposal 2 council meetings hence. The parking fines, through what is that?
That is through to the end of July.
And when did the parking fines?
Parking fines, that's the, actually the parking meter revenue isn't on here because as of July 31st, we hadn't actually received any.
Have we now?
We have now, so we're not sure, we'll do an analysis on that, we can do an analysis on that for the next meeting. We've been collecting some of the meters, but,
Is it $5, $50,
it's, oh no,
$5,000?
it's thousands,
It's favorable.
yeah, very favorable. I mean, we have to pull out the TransLink tax of 26%, and so it's, yeah, so
Well, I almost said something.
so that's not on here, and that wasn't budgeted, so it's all,
Yeah, right. So these fines are neither here nor there,
they're
really.
the parking tickets. Well, it's,
Does that mean we're not enforcing enough, or people aren't offending?
People are actually paying online quite
yeah,
quite
we've actually,
compliantly.
I mean, this is on the cash basis, so we're a bit ahead of last year in terms of collections because
Oh, that's right.
they can pay online now. It's something we implemented with Maze, and it's been incredibly successful.
But it would still show here in this number here, this 4515 number.
No, it would, but what I'm saying is we're actually showing ahead of last year just because it is cash basis and people are paying. We have a lot more people are paying the tickets, and which reduces the amount that have to go to collection. So it's actually overall been a very successful program.
Okay, and the FOIPA fees, no FOIPA, nobody's gone as far as paying a fee. Does that mean we've had no FOIPA requests, or
They've dwindled,
that's a good sign?
and most FOIPA requests are involve under the limits. So we don't get too many that are in that realm where we're charging over and above 3 hours kind of thing.
This is probably more detail than we needed on here. Now that I look at it, since it actually has no budget, I think it just appears because there was an amount last year.
Okay.
But we never budget that. If we get the revenue,
It
that's
is what
fine,
it is.
but it's just too small to even worry about budgeting.
Okay, anybody else on revenue side? No? Ready to move on? I mean, it's all the same, and the
Oh yeah,
notes?
revenue summary, sorry. And then the expense summary. So this is where I think for the third quarter review, I will attach the detail of all this. We don't have to go through all the page, but it will give you more information. This was sort of an experiment this time to try to keep it higher level. So I basically just commented on a lot of the variances are caused by supplementals because this is where the operational supplementals are. So for example, in administration, we have 20,000 for asset management and 20,000 for records management. So with the asset management, we are applying, as I discussed at a previous meeting, we're applying for the FCM grant. And with the records management, we've engaged RICO to start taking copies of a lot of our older documents. We've actually initiated them to start taking copies of a lot of the maps that are in Public Works. They're very old and very delicate.
So they
we
take them
need to-
off-site and run them
Yes.
through their big automated scanners?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because this is 40K that we've taxed for.
Yes.
So that's under work.
Mhm.
That's great. And the asset management plan, are we going to spend that money?
We are. The reason it was delayed, it was for a good reason. It was the FCMF
The-
asset management grant, which
the
we're
potential
applying
grant,
for, and there was another 20,000. It was a 2-year project in the 5-year plan for 2018. So we will definitely have spent some of it by the end of the year. I mean, if we're not successful with the grant, then we'll just go a different way and spend the 20. But hopefully we will be successful, and it'll enable us to do more. But then that would straddle the year, and then we would finish it in 2018 with hopefully the additional 20,000 if it gets approved in the 2018 budget.
Okay. Just back to this council number here. The budget's 70 and we spent 27. That's not just one councillor's salary.
No, and it's the 10,000 for the by-election.
Oh, so that's still
and
to
that-
come. Okay,
yes,
so
there's no
that's
costs in that.
37 out of 70. But even so, what haven't we spent money that you thought we were going to spend money on?
That was pretty much it, because it is
Travel.
a small budget. So, yeah, the travel.
So that's
is still
sleeping
down
on
with the
couches
convention.
instead of using hotels.
Yeah, because I had done the analysis. So basically, we're about 13,000 under,
Hmm.
but we would, and that's pretty much offset by the salary, the.
Sounds like a new map
the
to me.
10,000. No, I'm saying we're actually on track, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, because we should be.
Carl's right, the numbers are wrong for one missing body and the 10 Gs, which we may or may not
Yeah,
spend.
well,
Well,
it's within
13.
about 1,000, 1,500.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
But
it's-
there's still time, because you don't spend money, we're only halfway through the year, and you don't spend money evenly. I mean, there'll be
September, October, November, December. Yeah, I guess there's 4 months left.
there'll be the UBCM coming up, there'll be some costs for that.
Well, I'm not even signing up. I'm just going to go. So I'm not paying the fee.
You're crashing?
Yeah. Well, I don't need to go and show my badge to go into the plenary session to hear people from other places talk about their pet projects.
Have you read through the resolutions?
Yes. No, I haven't.
Sure.
But I've been getting, I get 2 emails a day from, Vanderhoof asking for support for their motion to support the Lost Horses Association.
You gotta be the only one that gets emails from Vanderhoof.
Okay.
So, are there any questions? Do you want me to continue to go through line by line? or-
No, I don't propose that we go through line by line. This park planning development number, 30%, that's still quite a bit to come, right, Peter? The 65 is still going to be spent.
Yeah, essentially we've council's already agreed to extend Steve's contract for another 7,500, and
60, not 65.
and then there's the natural hazards assessment study, which we just discussed. That'll be 25,000, so it leaves a balance of about 27,000. And the plan is to use that for subdivision servicing bylaw and building bylaw.
Coming from a consultant, to be determined.
Consultant and or legal.
Yeah.
There'll be both.
That's actually, we actually, all things totaled, we actually budgeted 120 grand for all that stuff.
Well, that's the whole planning and development budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's quite a lot.
60,000 was for the planning consultants.
Okay. Anyone else?
My proposal, Pam, is that for the September 30th, which we'll see in mid-November, 2 things. One, if you could do a cash flow from September 30th to when tax collection starts.
Okay.
And that will facilitate a number of things in our strategy session and may also influence what our tax setting might be. It's hard.
And our land purchase takes place at the end of the month, closing on the 27th.
Yeah, so
is
that's
that right?
that's before, so we'll see what our net is. So I think it's a lucky date for us. So if we could have that, it'd be good. And thank you for answering as best you can these seemingly big discrepancies that become clear as we get closer to December 31st, but it's too late. If you could do a skinny report, primarily on the expenditure section, for any expenditure, and I'm looking at consolidated, that's less than 75% being the September 30th date, and then more than $35,000. So my quick look would be administration, public works, planning and development, parks rec, and water fund. And I think that's the guts of the big difference. And it can be you're good at this, you know what we're looking for.
Yeah, so I mean, just to embroider on that, I think that's a good idea. you know, we did give marching orders at the beginning of the year. We don't want to tax for projects we're not doing. I get a sense, I get quite a good level of comfort that we're on track to spend the money we're taxed for, other than cases where,
Just explain the variance. Right?
yeah, where we, you know, I wouldn't say we took a chance, but it was provisional. For example, the CN grant, which I'm fine with, and that money can go in reserve against the next time we apply. So, but I still would like to see that. I mean, I know that you guys are not letting the grass grow under your feet, and that's clear by all the stuff that's the RFPs that are out there, and this CapEx schedule as well. But it still would be useful to see. Okay, so we'll move on to the CapEx schedule starting on page 42. I only had one question, and that was this cellular thing. Just remind us, please, Nye. The cellular study was the project that carried over from last year, and that was to do what again?
To evaluate whether or not SCADA is best served by cellular modem or radio or some hybrid or...
Or something else, or
Something
hardwire,
else.
or yeah,
Correct,
laser, line of sight, or whatever. Okay, and so that the budget was 23.5,
correct.
and you've got an RFP out there.
No, the RFP that went out was for improving cellular communication in the village
Through the
So-
cell towers.
through the cell tower.
Okay, so nothing to do with the cellular communications project.
No, if you recall, we talked about this at an IMP. There is significant overlap with the work that AECom is doing on the SCADA side of the water tank upgrades, and we need to have that done first before we do the SCADA communication study. It may be handled as part of the clean water wastewater, as part of the tank upgrades.
So this may carry over, or may actually be unneeded.
Correct.
Just by the by, the UBCM study, they are talking about, I think he's already gotten the funding, is that right, Peter? For low bandwidth nodes that we might be able to use as well. Essentially, it's a very low baud rate, you know, for things like temperature and wind speed. You need a little bit of data once an hour. They're quite small and quite inexpensive. He just needs space on the tower, a tower somewhere, our tower. But it's something we might be able to use. So I don't want to go off half-cocked on this. So I'm actually, it is money that we've taxed, $23,000. That's quite a lot, 2% tax. But that's one I can live with if we carry it over, or if it becomes superfluous to the work that AECOM's doing. That's the only one I had. The rest is coming.
Seemed like the ones that are pennies are all in aligned and the ones that are in dollars are far offside.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, I know this, you may even be doing this separately later. Just give us a quick sense of where we are on the work on the two intakes.
So the Harvey Creek intake, the proposal was to build a new weir around the mass of concrete that is there. As they were scouring and scarifying that existing weir, it completely disintegrated. So we're getting a completely brand new weir at Harvey. It's actually quite skookum, the amount of steel and concrete that they're putting in there. Just to give you a sense, the original weir, the estimate was that it was about 1.5 cubic meters of concrete. The new weir will be 7 cubic meters of concrete, plus steel, etc. So,
Is the height the same? In other words, will
No,
the crest be above, middle, or below the intake grade?
it'll be the same profile. They've surveyed the profile, so it'll have the same profile. It'll be a foot higher than the old.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But using the profile recommended by the IC.
Correct. Yes. The Magnesia Creek intake. There's been a road built to the intake. There's been machinery in there mucking out behind the weir and getting ready to place the pipe for the infiltration gallery. So that's moving ahead as well.
question on Harvey.
Mhm.
Was the concrete a low grade that was there before and that's why it broke up? Or?
I'm not sure. It was just, they couldn't get sound concrete and it just, at some point, it just completely disintegrated, so. Yeah,
Did we have to haul that out? I mean,
Yeah.
It's not been left there.
no, it's been hauled out.
So change in budget on that?
No, they accounted for that in their contingency, so.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I suspect probably it may actually be easier. Just more concrete, sure, but
Mhm.
one form, one pour.
Yeah, pour is done. It's.
Oh, the pour's done.
Everything's complete.
Where's the pictures?
They just need to, pictures are on the consultant's cameras. We will get them at the end of the project. They need to strip the forms. They did find a cavity forming under the intake manhole, so that's an extra that we're gonna have to buck up for them to repair.
In the sidewall.
Actually inside the intake, at the base, there was a cavity and a hole, and the entire underneath of that manhole is wearing away. So they're going to jackhammer that and pour a new floor to that intake manhole.
Well, this is all good because to my mind, you know, this kind of work actually saves on operating costs down the road for all kinds of good reasons. Not having to go up there to clean it out. I don't know so much about Harvey, but certainly Mag, I'm looking forward to seeing what the change in labour requirement is.
Yeah. So that's the 2 intakes.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? There's some relatively big numbers here, but I think to my mind it looks like it's all on track. The fire, the burn building is going to happen this year.
For the most part, I think. I don't know if it'll be complete, but it's gonna move along, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I'd rather not tax for money we're not going to spend, so. Because next year is another year. But we all, I know I'm preaching to the choir, so that's fine. Okay, and we're going to hear about the bridge inspections just now, so that's good. So, if everybody's good, I'll move that we receive the report. Thanks, and that was a second. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Pam. Great stuff. It's getting easy.
Yes. I'll provide more detail next time, though, because
Well-
the nice thing about having the detail, it's there if we need to refer to it, but
The
we don't
notes
have
are good.
to discuss. Yeah. We can
You
do
can
both.
never have too many notes, so notes are good. Okay, so let's move on. Everybody good? Need a break? Anyone? No? Okay, so the checklisting, starting on page 37. No? 45?
Yeah, 45.
I had just one or two, but more sort of questions arising rather than the number itself, so maybe I'll just kick those off.
Sure.
The Music Together, this is a village endeavor.
It's an independent contractor, and it's basically, we pay her 20%. She pays us 20% of what her fees are. So it's a program that is run through the village, in the village hall for children.
So why are we writing her a check?
Because we accept the revenue actually comes
Oh, I
into
see.
us,
Okay.
just for administratively, and then at the end of the program,
Got it.
we write her a check for
So that
80%.
represents 80% of.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Now the water modelling, I mentioned this. As the infrastructure committee saw, the water model that had been done by Geoscience, GeoAdvice, turned out to be not really worth the paper it was written on. In fact, AECOM had to pretty much do it again. Am I right now in that?
The GeoAdvice model was based on erroneous information in our GIS system. So our GIS...
And they didn't check that in the field, so they went ahead with that.
No, it would be ground truth by us internally. So there are pipe sizes on our GIS system that are incorrect, that we would need to ground truth.
So I guess, is it valid to pay these guys $9,000?
Yeah, it's not their fault, it's ours.
But the study is worthless.
Not the entire study. There are portions that AECOM's field testing has shown is not accurate.
I guess the nodes and the lengths and stuff, they are still valid. In fact, we've got the model, right?
And the model itself, we have the model. In fact, That's what AECom used, is the model, and that's how they were able to,
Yeah.
to ground truth.
So I
Otherwise,
would
the
hope
cost
that we
would've
will
been
see
higher.
next year a spend on improving our data.
Prior to, that will be operational. That will be
So you-
our staff out in the field, opening and closing valves and counting the turns to make sure the sizing is correct.
I suspect they probably know it all off the top of their head. And then that will go into the GIS and we'll asymptotically approach 100% correct.
It has to be done, yes, correct, and before we do any pipe upgrades, we need to do that operationally.
Okay?
Seems to me that there's value in having staff do our assessments rather than hiring a student to input the GIS.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, there was as-built information that was not collected after the finish of projects. Most notably, there was a project by Al Ray. We did not receive as-bills for that project. So the student
What project
just,
was that?
I don't remember. I believe it's a new water main on Bayview.
Could
Does
be
that make
Stewart.
sense? Could be Stewart. So we didn't receive as-built information.
Well, I can tell you what that is, a 14-inch pipe. I know because it was right in front of my house.
And the student just used old as-built information.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, that's not very clever.
no.
Yeah. The amount that we paid to Oxley Electric for the Beach Park electrical upgrade, $6,600. What did we get for that?
They redid some of the circuits in the electrical panel. They redid the lighting on the surround of the building. They added a GFI on the outside of the building, and they installed hand dryers.
So that's $1,000. Where's the rest? Are you satisfied that the work we got was $6,600 worth?
Did you tender it?
Yes, we did. We went for 3 quotes. So
And they were obviously higher.
yeah, they were the lowest. Oxley was. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Good question.
Skated on that one.
Thank you.
Do we seem to be repairing the chlorine pump a lot?
We've had a lot of problems with the chlorine pump. There have been failures of solenoids.
How much is a new one?
Pump,
Or do we get a new one as a result of the project?
no, we will not get a new one as a result of the project. They're upwards of 25 grand each.
I think we've spent that in the last 2 years.
Not just on the chlorine pumps. We've used, for example, the solenoids are separate to the pump,
Okay.
right? So the system is, in its original, chlorine's very corrosive, and it is wearing, so.
Well, Jim, you may remember this. Did we not? The original system was chlorine gas,
It was.
and we changed to a doser.
Yeah,
sort of
that's
after
right.
the fact
Hypochlorite,
doser.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that may well explain some of it.
I'd be interested in hearing. Maybe this should come to the IC at some point, Fred. Why we wouldn't go back to gas? I know why we switched away. It's dangerous to handle.
Absolutely.
But you know,
Yeah.
with better training, better professionalism, more whatever. There's all kinds of good reasons to use gas. Plus all the other ones. Not sodium hydrosulfite, but what's the other one?
So
chloramination.
Chloramination.
Is the technology not smartened up?
Yes, that's the point.
We suffer from, we're in this area right now where we're overthinking the thoughts that were made by the experts years ago about chlorine and about all that stuff. And we're seeing it now more and more in industry and anything else, especially related to any kind of chemical. We're finding, for example, one of the solutions we found from one of our suppliers was it made sense from a hazard point of view to use liquid silica in concrete mixing. But there was a whole bunch of hazards associated with liquid silica that you couldn't engineer out. They weren't safe, and they caused a whole bunch of problems and they lasted about 6 months, and all of a sudden people started switching back because they were actually exposing their workers to worse problems than the silica itself with the chemical exposure. so. And
Well, I mean, I'm sure we went
That's probably
for
a
the-
very similar thing,
for the same reason, perhaps.
yeah.
But maybe this is something we can think about for budgeting purposes next year. You know, ultimately, I want to get that water number down. That $800,000 a year to run our water, it's too high. And you know, if we change the way we dose the disinfectant, maybe it's not even chlorine anymore. Maybe, I don't know. I'm sure we'd have to pay an engineer to work it out for us. But okay. I saw 3 audit payments to BDO. Was that
Yes.
was the number as expected?
It
The
was,
final
yeah,
number?
they were right
Okay.
on budget, and they bill in installments.
Yeah, no, sure. And the humidifier that we paid $4,000 for, does that run independent of the heat and the AC, or does it need the heat/AC to be running?
It's part of the heat. It injects
Yeah, water into
Yeah.
the thing, right? So
Yeah.
does the heat run all the time?
I don't know if the heat runs all the time, but the fan is on an automated cycle, so
Okay.
it'll blow air, not heated air.
Okay, I guess where I'm going is that they knew what they were doing when they put it in. It's not
Yes.
it's not going to dose the thing with water only when it's running,
No.
when somebody's in there. Okay. And who is Temple Consulting Group Online Services Setup?
That is Maze, our software,
okay.
and that was what I was talking about was very successful, allowing people to make payments online, property taxes, and by credit card, and the parking tickets.
Yeah, that's great. And my last one, the office phones, $2,000. What's that? Is that a monthly, quarterly, annual fee? Second last check.
It's definitely more than a month. I think what happened, they were slow with invoicing us, so it was probably several invoices, but I will look into what that was.
Yeah, because $2,000 a month for our phone is obviously a little bit much.
Okay, I will.
Okay, anybody else? Motion to receive the report, thanks, and a second. Any further? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. 9. Community Centre Landscaping Plan, page 55.
So the nitty gritty, the Coles Notes version is that the 2 estimates that we received are way over the 20,000 available budget. Staff are proposing that we spend 10,000 plus 10,865 to have the contractor come in and remove the invasive species around. If you can look at the overview image, so that would include removal of the invasive species in that area
For 10 grand?
for 10,865, and then staff would basically work on the balance of the landscaping note issues throughout the course of the year and into next year.
Remind us how the 20,000 came about. Was that a grant? Did we say let's spend 20 grand? How did we come up with that number?
I think we potentially would have to go offline for that. Refer it to closed if you want.
I
Yes.
indicated to the mayor what it was.
Yeah, no, okay, so that was money that was
Repurposed.
essentially a grant, but it's not really repurposed.
Oh.
It's
It's a trade.
landscaping.
Yep.
Yeah, that's, so I just couldn't remember. Okay, so we do need to spend it, otherwise we're going to lose it. 20 grand. But 10 grand to remove some weeds? Is that what it costs? Is that not something volunteers want to do?
No. No. May I go in a different path than our works manager has recommended? Much like the electrical down at the beach, things are just expensive, and that's the way it is. We've got 2 quotes and they're $13,000 apart, which is a very big number. I looked at the difference if we took the hybrid plan that NICE presented, and they do part of it, rip the weeds, and then we leave it alone and we rebudget for the following year. You know, it's a delayed process to get where we're going. And our people would be doing it. So I mean, if I take our 75 grand base rate for our folks, more or less, you know, 2 or 3 people working for the hour for 2 weeks, you know, divide the 75 by 1,950 hours. Long story short, it comes to $16,000. So why would we have our people doing all this work when we can just outsource it and be done?
Well, yes, we have to spend $20,000
So I'm,
on a plan plus the work itself.
None of
And,
it has to be done this year, though.
no, I suppose not.
well, I'm going to speculate that we're going to be under budget. And it'd be nice to finish more than one project like the electrical and the washrooms.
Yeah, one sort of feel-good community-facing project. Yeah, I mean, I'll just remind you that my goal here was to come up with an overall, overarching landscape plan, pretty much for the public area here, starting at the fire hall, getting rid of the weeds, which is actually a decorative, turned into a decorative redbud tree now, all the way down there, including what we do with, as we'll hear in a minute, the new look highway tank area, which will no longer be an above-ground tank. But this is not this. So I could actually see spending as little money as possible and keeping our powder dry of the money that was given to us in respect of removing trees from the highway for an actual plan, to spend it on a plan. But I'm hearing that even a plan is just a plan, a paper plan.
It's going to be even more. I mean, to throw 10 grand for nice looking plants, I mean, I'm sure that's dimes in planter world.
No, I'm not saying any materials. I'm just saying the plan. The nice thing, the way they do it. People walking past trees. That kind of rendering type stuff. I mean, does a landscape? I know landscape architects are expensive, and I think
Yeah.
you've already told us we'll get nothing for 10 grand.
No, I think it was, Peter, do you remember? I think it was upwards of 35?
Something
30?
like that, yeah.
Yeah. Just for this facility, and it didn't include everything.
Okay, well, we're going to have to do this as a community project then. So, yeah, I hear what you say, but I would like to spend as little as possible to keep that money available for when we can do a plan.
Well, just
Are they cutting the check to us, Peter? Or do we have to show them an invoice?
I still have to work that out.
Okay.
I was just wondering, with our native plant people working on for a nice job they're doing on Lions Bay Avenue, could they not come up with a nice plan for us and then hire somebody to do the bulwark for them? Like the ideas that they've got in the native plant garden and everything are fine.
It's lovely.
And
And
I think they do well up here. I don't think we need to hire some high-priced.
certainly not for 35 grand.
You'd still need to get rid of all the invasives.
Yeah,
That's a
the
given.
bulwark
but so that's an
we're talking
$8,500 project, right?
10,000.
10,865.
10
Well, I
grand.
got the digits right, just in the wrong order. That's half. But okay, so let's assume that native
Okay,
plant
you know
garden.
what, I'll retract my statement, although it's still on the table for thinking about. But I think it's worth you making the call to them
Yeah.
and pitch the idea, and that we could do this over a couple of years and really make it look nice, as they've done with theirs, because it didn't look great the whole time, and they've
No,
done a nice job.
It would take a while, but if you've got to have a plan that you're heading towards,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not talking about anything highly fancy, just so that we know. Get rid of the faux rocks outside the fire hall, or not, as the case may be. Maybe they're good.
So why don't we park this and leave you to make the phone call?
Fine.
But it's
Not even get rid of the invasives.
Well, I think we should do that, period.
Well, let's wait to see what they have to
Well,
say.
actually, if we rip the invasives out and we do nothing, then
We haven't lost anything. We would have.
it
Well,
regrows.
weeds will grow back
It
in.
regrows,
so-
so you want to start strong.
Meaning, let's first get a plan.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so Shauna put me down for Mayor Burr. Carl will talk to the native plant garden people. It's an association. Yeah, it's a formal group, and see if, and offer them that there is budget, both from sort of grant sourcing and from potential draw-on budget. This place, I mean, one of my main things now, as you very well know, is this retaining wall needs something done with it.
Not urgently. There's many more priorities that we have.
Of a landscaping nature. Landscaping meaning, feel good stuff. Looking good stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we need a list of those. Maybe you and I sit down with them and just go through some of the land issues. I mean, as you know, I can see color wash lighting. If they can do color wash lighting under the SkyTrain in Surrey, surely we can do color wash lighting on our hall.
We've got 580,000 people in Surrey.
I'm
to
aware
pay
of the
for
budget
that
difference. I'm talking about aesthetics.
Carl, invite them to lunch here in Chambers and walk around the place, show them, give them the information, and I'm sure they're gonna go yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and staff would be okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fine. Okay, consider
Get
it
the whole
under
community out
work.
to move crap.
That
Is that
actually
okay?
talks well. Let's hope that I didn't send that letter to them now. That will give me a good...
Or maybe it was in your mind that you sent it.
No, I remember writing it, but what I did with this is another question. Okay, so the motion is, I'll move it, that we just hold fire. So, do you give us that option now in your report? Do nothing?
Option 3 is
Yeah,
to direct staff on another course of action.
Okay, so hold fire.
Recommend table.
So do nothing. Can I have a second on that? Thanks. And any further discussion? All in favour on that one? And opposed? That carries. Okay. Good. And the the bridge inspection proposal. There's an on-table report. Here it is.
Essentially, we went out for tender on the close proximity bridge inspections for all 8 of our bridges. We received 2 proposals back, with ISL being the cheapest of the 2 proposals and the best presentation in the proposal. I would like to
Wasp and ISIL. Give me a break.
I would like to engage them in discussion regarding the number of bridges we inspect this year. The budget called for the inspection of 4 bridges. I would like to bring forward a report to the next council meeting with more detail on the costs of the inspections and the number of bridges that we do. But I can't meet with them without giving them the go-ahead. Did I get that, Peter?
Where did I see somewhere, going past my radar, the costs for 4 versus 8?
In the capital.
In the CapEx.
Yeah.
Just show us, because I think we can skip one extra step then. I just
It's page 42.
42.
Yeah, 42. Weekly bridge inspections. The RFP issued, and we talked about the bids. But this is one of the changes.
Yeah.
That's why we have the on-table report.
Yeah.
That
So we had budgeted 20. We get all 8 for 31.
maybe,
With a proviso that there is no level 2 testing. That's why I'd like to come to the next meeting with more detail. If we require level 2 testing on some of the bridges, that means pouring concrete, pouring wood, etc. The price goes up.
Okay, so what are you
So-
asking for approval for now?
That we know based on the proposals that ISL is the best proposal. I'd like to work with them on the details further, whether we need level 2 testing. If we don't need level 2 testing, then this dollar amount will suffice for
Okay,
all
so
8.
you're saying you need permission to potentially commit us to a $31,000 spend instead of a 20.
Correct.
Okay, fine.
And then
So-
if it turns out that we can't do it this year for that amount, then it will be spread over 2 years.
and we would just do the 4 as budgeted.
Like
and
we
4
were
next
talking
year.
Do as
about.
much as we could this year, and then but there would be additional. Let's go over into next year.
But just depending on what the answers are, there's a potential for more efficiency if we do 8. So
Yeah, you
that's
can
why
see
we
just
proposed it
moving.
that way, but then there was new information. And we,
Fine.
that clear
And I
as mud?
particularly like this idea because there's funding coming down the pike, and if we know, we can put ourselves in the way of it. Okay, so what's the wording on the motion?
right, as recommended on page 1 of the on-table report.
Okay, so those two recommendations are the motion. Can I have a second on those? Any further discussion? All in favour? And opposed? Okay, good stuff. That
Thank you.
that goes. Thanks, Nye. Well done. And committee, mayor, nothing from the mayor. Committee reports. Page 63.
We have the minutes of the IC special meeting that was held on September 6th, and which reviewed the feasibility memo from AECom on options. And after good discussion, there was a recommendation from the committee, which is laid out on the 3rd page of the minutes. 3 recommendations: that council approved option 2 of the tank configuration options, which is replace the Harvey and highway tanks and remove tanks 4 and 5 from the system and tender both regular and pre-stressed concrete options. And secondly, that council approved proceeding with the 3 additional options for the system as outlined in the second report, provided the overall cost can be brought within the project budget. And those 3 additional options were to have an interconnection pipe across Alberta Creek, an auto switching, which enables switching back and forth between Mag and Harvey intakes, and upsizing the Harvey tank due to the deficit in the recommended size of the Mag tank, which still has lots of life left on it.
For fire volume. Yeah.
And thirdly, that council direct and authorize staff to proceed with the project on a foregoing basis and instruct AECom accordingly.
Okay. Fred, you want to add anything to that?
I can't say much, not being there, so I trust.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sorry. So I'll summarize. We went round and round on these things. I think there was a bit of resistance initially, and we all came around based on Nye's very clear explication of what was going on. I think we were very comfortable. As it turned out, we were very happy with AECOM's recommendation. Smack right down in the middle of the road. All things being equal, based on their projected numbers, we would come in on budget, doing all these things and these 3 sort of optional projects, which are very nice to have. And if we don't come in on budget, we should probably have to talk about how we're going to get them anyway. That's the bridge, a totally different bridge across Alberta Creek. Right now it's up in the boonies, very hard to get to, dangerous, because we will be just abandoning all the infrastructure for phase 4 and 5 tanks, demolishing 4 and 5, right, and
Correct.
taking them away.
Yes.
And then the pipes and road that are there would just be
Remain.
left. You will see, and I'll just point out because you may remember this being talked about, we recognized in the meeting that that would mean that it would be slightly more difficult to ever recommission Alberta as an intake if we ever wanted to do that. But we felt that given the uncertainty of whether we would ever do that and how that would look if we did, we felt that was acceptable given the benefit of doing things this way. Peter mentioned the self-balancing PRV, which is the one that's in the electrical cabinet opposite the school right now, right? So
No, this is a new PRV on Bayview Road, I believe, or Mountain.
So what's happening with the one that's in the electrical cabinet that the recommendation is to make permanent and put it in its own underground cabinet?
That needs to happen still.
But that's not part of this.
No.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'm glad I
Well, I
remembered
think
those.
it was perhaps it was a PRP that was going to replace the phase 4 tank, right?
Yeah, there is, yeah.
Yeah, no.
I need to
Oh, it
verify
may be
that
that,
now.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then finally, the highway tank will be demolished and put underground.
correct.
Why? Because that would put us on the road to best practice, which is 1 equalization vessel and 1 PRV per pressure zone. Right now we have stacked PRVs to actually drop, for example, going from the end of Mountain all the way down to Brunswick. There's 4 right now, 4 cascaded PRVs.
Yeah.
It's bad because they start talking to each other and hammering. So it's all good. So can we take the recommendation as read by Peter as a motion, if you're okay with that?
There's one additional one that started that, which is in the agenda. Firstly, receipt of the information, the draft meeting minutes, and then those 3 recommendations.
Okay, fine, so let's do that in 2 separate. So a motion to receive the report, thanks, and a second. Any further discussion, all in favour? Opposed, that carries. So we've received the report, and then let's take those 3 options as read by Peter into the record as a second motion. Can I have a second? Thanks, Fred, and any discussion? All in favour? Opposed, that carries. Okay, good. So that's $2.71 million committed to. Did you know that?
It's not our money, Fred, it's okay.
It's partially our money. If I've ever felt more comfortable about spending $2.71 million, I don't know when that was. I'm very pleased that this is underway. Will it be done by March 31?
We're gonna look, we're gonna try.
Okay, and you'll, silver-tongued devil that you are, you will get the grant extended if we're missing. And these guys will know once we're committed.
March
It's on the table right now. We are gonna have to do a memo to them because we're changing from steel, which was in the clean water wastewater grant, to concrete. So,
I think it's fair to say, Nye, that there was a little hesitancy on council to go big with a big report on such an important subject. And you were the one that we were looking at to ensure that previous errors didn't occur. We don't need to go through those again, but I'd personally like to thank you and Peter and the team for really stick handling this through and shoving it through in the first second. Thank you.
Here. Yep. Good job. Okay, now this we're handling in closed, are we not, Peter? This next one, the Beach Park Advisory Committee selection.
Yeah, so, I mean, the report itself is here and open with the terms of reference, which is also to be approved.
Yeah.
But the actual selection of the applicants will have to be deferred to closed meeting.
Okay, fine, thanks. So I'll take a motion to approve the terms of reference and receive the report. Thanks, Fred, and a second. Okay, it's seconded. Any discussion?
Peter, if the number, I think if the number of applicants is 4 or is 6, at least 3, 4 is okay. At most, let's say we have a squabble, is 6 okay, or would we have to come back and change that?
Yeah, perhaps what we ought to do is wait until after discussing.
We can revisit that.
Let's.
Okay, so let's rescind the motion. We haven't voted on it yet, so that's fine. And table it. Or do you want an amended motion?
Did we vote on it?
No.
Did they vote on it?
Your secret desires.
I think the tabling motion would suffice.
Yeah. Motion to table. Second. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. And there's no motion services report, so we'll move on to resolutions. There are none, and bylaws. There are correspondence. Start on page 71. Ron, you want to do the honours?
Good. Being as sick as I have been for the last 2 days and being stared down by the cat in bed, I was in my most vicious state when I read the correspondence. So, of course, I'm sure that Premier Horgan wished you your best. I think that's for you and Peter to decide what you're going to do with that. So, no response to the rest.
Peter and I are going to be attending all these meetings together.
Okay, so we'll move on. G2, UVCM resolution on electric vehicles. There's 3 letters here, no response.
Yep.
Anointed by the Salish Sea. Well, this is a personal statement. Quite frankly, I would prefer Mr. Trudeau jump in the St. Lawrence in January, given the budget deficits you're running, but that's just a personal view. No response.
Yep.
Metro Vancouver 2040, shaping the future. This is a land design thing that is really affecting the larger communities. I see a no NR for us on this one.
Do you know, have they accepted our regional context statement? I don't remember yet having seen it come
I think so.
past.
The recollection is that they did, but I'm hard pressed to
Yeah, okay.
put my finger on the response.
Okay, well, that's for them to worry about. Okay.
Okay.
So no response?
Yeah, G5, this is part of the Amanda Todd legacy. Heartfelt for sure, but no response. Smoking bans on public beaches, parks, and trails. this is particular.
Don't we have this already? There's no smoking in our...
Well, that's why you're mayor. Firstly, I would say that this non-resident wrote as if she was a resident. And, but, I presume it's a she, I don't know. But we have the bylaws in place, so it's a no-go here, and it's a no response.
I'll respond to this.
Okay?
I like this person.
So there is no smoking at the beach, and we've got the signs all over the trails.
But
and
that's
we've got
more a
the-
wildfire thing, so, yeah, I'm not going to tell people they can't smoke when they're hiking, if
Well,
they were crazy enough to want to do that.
Sure,
If there's no fire danger.
Maybe we should go the swallow the butt rule.
Yeah, at the beach, sure, because there's
That
people
way the
given
ambulance
proximity.
guys can practice. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Carl, that's yours,
Yeah.
and no need to report back to us.
Okay.
Regional Prosperity Forum, which I don't see this as a good use of Carl's time myself.
Well, I have been to 2 of them, and I must have signed up for this one. It's changed its date at least half a dozen times, and I'm tired of signing up with them, so I'm not going.
No response
Sounds
is my
right.
answer. Update from Jordan Sturdy. I must say, he genuinely does an outstanding job of telling us what he's up to, and I thought and I'll get the page right, that on page 108 of 116, obviously he's changed since he was re-elected, because I see he's gone for the earring again.
Yeah. The thing that annoyed me is that Lions Bay wasn't mentioned in the pulling together canoe thing.
Well, I thought this was the one where, yeah, well, he showed the canoe at other places, but there you go.
And nor in the North Shore News, or the Beacon, or the Lighthouse, whatever it's called. We didn't even get a
There you
mention.
go. Well, that's a freebie for you. Okay, so St. John Ambulance Annual Inspection. Again, this is, in my view, not a good idea of time for anybody to go to Cloverdale and be part of a throng of 500 to 1,000. So, no response. Airport privatization. Please don't get me started on this. No response. Which brings us to Sarah McCullough. And that one was Peter to respond to her, if you haven't already. Page 44. Good points, but it's a little old.
I don't think so.
Yeah, this was to council and agenda, so clearly the resident wanted it in the council meeting
Actually,
agenda.
After that,
Well, it didn't come forward before, after that.
after this time, we actually did have a conversation with Modi, because they switched it up in
Mhm.
terms of their signage and what they provided and what they didn't, what they blocked off.
I'll respond to this one.
Okay,
Okay.
again, no report back to council, Your Honor.
Fine. Okay, good, thank you. So motion to receive correspondence with committed actions, thanks, and a second. And all in favor, opposed, that carries. New business, there's none. Public questions and comments? Was nice to have you though. And a motion to close under 91 A, E, J, and K. Ron's motion, thank you, and a
Thank
second.
you. I'm fading here, let's go.
All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, so let's get the meeting closed.
Did you finish?
Okay, we're returning from closed session at 9:19. One item to report. I'll ask Peter De Jong to do that. Reporting on the selections from the volunteer, the self-nominees for the beach. What's it
Park
called?
Advisory Committee.
We're gonna pass the terms of reference too.
Okay, so the applications accepted for inclusion on the Lions Bay Beach Park Advisory Committee are Heather Hood, Robin Spano, Oliver Brunke, Russ Michaeljohn, and Maddie Gildenheis.
Okay, thanks, Peter. And then we had tabled an item to do with, let me just remind myself, accepting the terms of reference. So how do we bring that back on table now?
Just
Call for a motion?
No, you pull from the table or return it.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, just say you'd like to bring forward the terms of reference at this point.
Okay, so I'll ask for a motion on
Recommend
the
on
terms,
tabling the
thanks.
terms of reference.
As presented in the agenda, thanks, and that's a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. And finally, that staff send out a thank you to all volunteers who put their names forward and coordinate a first meeting of the committee at this opportunity. Can I have a second on that? Thanks. And discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thanks. Okay, so with that, I'll ask for a motion of adjournment and a second. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Meeting closed 9:20.
Jim, have a great holiday.